It's going to be an awesome show. It's going to be really powerful for your nutrition. It's going to be very powerful, very, very clear about your nutrition. So without further ado, let's get started. So the best way to get into the meat of today's subject is, my VIPs already know this, and that is that what is the foundation of a healthy nutrition plan? And really the reason why I teach it this way, before I get into what it is, the reason why I teach it this way is almost 100%. I would say like 99% of the people that I've known who have been truly lean, athletic, highly functional body, they have some similarities in their nutrition. They have low body fat, good amount of muscle mass, are athletic, support all the physical activity that they do very well. There's a few components that are always the same. And there's also a few components from nutrition that, if you look at all the nutrients the human body needs, what you'll find is the majority of them come from a few categories. So when I take seeing real world over the last 30 plus years of what is the commonality every time with nutrition plans of humans, and where are all the nutrients coming from that we really need, and I've summarized those into 4 things. And that is, you should have 4 servings of vegetables the size of your fist every day. And you should have 4 servings of fruit the size of your fist every day. And then you should have a gram of protein per pound of lean body mass every day as well. And where will you get these things from? And I'm going to talk a little bit about the details, and then we're going to get into the next step that comes after learning those things. And the 4th component is staying well hydrated. And how do you know if you're staying well hydrated? Is it 8 glasses of water per day? Is it a gallon of water per day? I mean, how do you know what is the right nutrition for you? And what is the right hydration for you, more specifically? And so the way to know that is just look at your urine. Your urine should be typically light yellow, minus taking like a multivitamin and B vitamins, which will change the color of your urine. So you got to kind of take that into consideration. But otherwise, you want to have your urine clear-ish to light yellow. When it starts getting into darker colors, you're simply dehydrated. So one of the best tests is look at your urine, right? So those are the foundation. Now, does it in there? It doesn't necessarily in there, but the thing that I've found is that is the commonality for the reasons I shared, and that's the area that everybody skips and then starts trying to do all this top level stuff, and they've never got a good foundation to begin with. So they never end up getting lean, and they're trying to take this supplement and that supplement and eat this food because it was shown to be magical. But the thing is those are the things: 4 servings of vegetable and also 4 servings of fruit that are brightly colored. So like my shirt, right? And blues and yellows and all kinds of different variety of colors, because the color matches the nutrients. And then again, the protein. And so with the protein, it's going to be typically about 70 to 80% of your body, 70 to 90%, depending on how lean you are. So if you're a 200-pound person and your body fat is kind of high, that would be like 70% of your body weight is lean body mass. Right? So that would be 140 pounds of lean body mass. And then you would eat a gram per pound of lean body mass per day, right? But that's really important that you want to start there. But what I always say is the next thing you should do is you should really go and see an awesome naturopathic medical doctor that really knows their stuff on clinical nutrition and health optimization, so that you can see where you're deficient in nutrients and is there any food allergies that you're having, right? And because there's specifics for you. And by the way, about the fruit, because a lot of people, I thought fruit is inflammatory and blah, blah, blah. No, fruit is not inflammatory. In fact, it can be, but it has been shown over and over and over to actually be anti-inflammatory. The people who have issues typically are people who are not processing carbohydrates well, who are getting in too many energy nutrients, are not burning through the fuel. But if you're really, more physically active, which you should be if you're a VIP, with us, then you're going to process fruit just fine. And fruit, which also has fructose, is not the same as fructose that's being put in all of as food additives, right? Like high fructose corn syrup and that type of thing, because it comes with a ton of nutrients. It comes with phytonutrients. It comes with vitamins and all these other things that are so important for you, okay? But back to the most important thing, and that is today's show, where we're going to talk about, well, if I've done that, what's next? And that is knowing, where do you have micronutrient deficiencies? What micronutrient deficiencies might you have? And again, is there any food allergies? Because there's going to be allergies in your food that, or your body's having an allergic reaction, more specific to foods, and you don't really realize, they don't really manifest themselves like, oh, I ate the food and now I broke out in hives. It doesn't always work that simply, right? So you don't necessarily always know. So we have an awesome naturopathic medical doctor. Many of you have seen her before, and backed by popular demand, Dr. Darnis Warden. So let me give you a little bit of background and credentials about Dr. Darnis Warden before I turn the time over to her. And she is the female face of medicine. She is an award-winning physician. She's a researcher and global health educator who expertly and compassionately bridges the worlds of conventional allopathic medical care and advanced alternative medicine. So as a naturopathic medical doctor, she is licensed in prescribing both pharmaceuticals and nutraceuticals. And she is also a board certified clinical nutritionist. Okay, so she has a tremendous background in the exact subject that we're talking about today. And she's also served as a principal researcher for multiple medical industry companies, designing and conducting research for medical devices and nutraceuticals. She currently has 3 active research projects with major institutions. So without further ado, let me turn you over to my amazing friend and naturopathic medical doctor, Dr. Donese Worden. Thank you. And join us, please.
Let's see here. There we go. Unmuted. Happy New Year to my friend Robbie and to all my new friends here, and to Patricia. So it's a good time to, hi, John's waving. So it's a good time to kind of reevaluate, like, Robbie's saying, it's not the whole New Year's resolution thing. It's just a good time for reflection. And I love Robbie's message on nutrition, and he's just spot on. The main things that I tell people, nobody in my mind, most people do not get enough vegetables. I would up your number, Robbie, and I'd say 5 to 6. If I could get them on 5 to 6 servings of veggies, I'd be even happier, right? But it's those minerals that we see a lot of deficiencies in, and those come from those plants, from those veggies. And fruit, I love fruit for the antioxidants, all the things that they bring, but most things that you can get from fruit, you can get from vegetables without the sugar. Most people, when you're active, like Robbie's teaching you, we're fine. But a lot of people aren't, and fructose, or that fruit sugar, can be a problem if they've got a blood sugar or diabetes issue. So more veggies, absolutely. Protein, love it. I agree with you on your calculations, Robbie. I would just say sometimes on blood work, we can see BUN and other things when people's kidneys are having trouble filtering. And that's when we have to be a little careful with the protein. And then water, I love, look at your urine, obviously, look at your body. What is it producing? What is it getting rid of? That's great. But even in medicine, we've got a very technical, very difficult test that we can do. And I can teach you right now how to do to see if you're dehydrated. It's called the tinting test. Take your hand out in front of you, pull the skin up, and if it doesn't pop down very quickly, you're dehydrated. It's called the tint test. We do it in medicine. Tinting and that way. But once that's too slow going back down, you're already dehydrated. Once you feel thirsty, it's already past the fact. So I agree with Robbie, know how much you should be doing, but if you're thirsty or this thing has gotten slow on you, you're already dehydrated. And I love that we've got to be individualized in all of this, in your exercise, in your nutrition, everything that you're doing. It's not a one size fits all. And the difference between food allergies and food sensitivities. An allergy is an IgE, immediate sensitivity. You eat something, you break it in hives, or you run into the bathroom. I probably don't need to test you for those. You already know they're a problem, right? But then there's an IgG, delayed sensitivity. Some foods may take 72 hours before you react. And your reaction could be, I just feel tired today. It could be lethargic, constipation, skin rat, whatever, headache. 72 hours, hard to look back and think, what did I eat 3 days ago that's causing inflammation today? So it's those hidden food sensitivities, I think, are very important to test in most patients. Robbie, so I know you want to jump in or you want me to keep going. That's fine.
Yeah, we can keep going. Yeah. So I thought, do you want to talk about everything together? Do you want to talk about micronutrients first and then food allergy net? What makes sense for you and your game plan?
You know what? Can I share a screen? Do I have the ability
Absolutely.
to share a screen right now?
Yes.
I believe you do. Yes.
Okay. I'm sure Patty's got me. So let's see. Don't nobody look at my desktop, but it's a mess. But this is just a sample. I will tell you that food sensitivity is one of the most important tests that I do on patients, because if you're putting something in every day that's causing a low level of inflammation, that, as most of you know, you're well educated, that's the root of almost every disease that we can name. Okay. And inflammation's the bad guy. So this is a sample. And so if we say we tested all these foods for this particular company, these were okay. They didn't cause the red blood cells to stick together, which means thick, sticky blood, which means inflammation. The ones in the red did. This particular person at 29, I usually say if you're reacting to more than 6 foods, you probably have leaky gut. You know, it's not that you're totally, these are not allergies. These are sensitivities. Most of these +1s and 2s would go away when we heal up the gut wall lining. But 3s and 4s, like this particular person, a 3 would be, it's hard to desensitize to those. Hard to teach the body not to. And the goal is that for 60 days, you don't eat those foods. Why 60 days? Your red blood cells all die within 60 days and you get a new red blood cell in. So if the baby sees the antigen, that piece, that thing that's reacting in your red blood cells, if it sees it, it's going to act like the mama. So we're trying to fool it. If the body doesn't see all these +1s and 2s and 3s and 4s for 60 days, a lot of the 1s and 2s are going to drop out if we've healed the gut wall lining. So it's also important to think about, a lot of people do these tests and they forget that they're cumulative. So let's say you ate an egg, it's a 3, and you had a banana, now you're at a 5, and you had vanilla flavor, now, right, you're at a 7. They're cumulative. So once you know what they are, you certainly wouldn't, after your 60 days and you start adding them in one at a time, just to see how you feel, you're looking at whatever your symptoms may be, you know, you've got to keep in mind that it would never be a great idea to do a bunch of them together in one day. So it's important, I think, to identify this. Do you need to spend money on these types of tests? You don't have to do the way we used to do it. You'd eat a food, you take your pulse, and if the pulse went up, that was a clue. But the other was gold standard. You take everything out of your diet. You're pretty much on a water fast. You might start with rice, and then you add one food back in every 4 days and you journal what's happening. Hard, long process, but it can be done. So you don't have to spend money. But if you just want to get a finger prick or a blood draw, pretty simple. There's only a couple companies that I trust in the fact that I double blind all of my labs. What does that mean? If I send your blood into the same lab for the same testing the same day, it better come back. 2 of them with 2 different names. I'm fooling the lab. It better look alike. And food sensitivities are tough. A lot of people are doing it now. A lot of labs, it depends on where they get their antigens. I've double blinded a lot of these companies and I'm only satisfied with 2 right now. So that's the researcher in me coming out. And Robbie, as far as micronutrients, I like the micronutrient testing that uses white blood cells, not your red blood cells, but white blood cells, to look what's growing in there, what's deficient. Because if I just took red blood, like if your regular doctor just said, let's test you for magnesium, they're looking what's floating around in the bloodstream in the red blood cells. That tells me what's out here. I want to know what's getting inside the cells. So intracellular analysis of micronutrients is really beneficial because it could be a certain amino acid, it could be a vitamin, a mineral, certain essential fatty acids. Some of the tests look at your adaptability of your immune system according to those nutrients. They also look at the overall antioxidant function. So these are important things. And, you know, we could say, I feel like a lot of integrative practitioners do the shotgun approach. You know, somebody comes in, they have all these symptoms, they give them all these supplements to take and hope something sticks and you feel better. It's not the way I like working. I want to know if I'm going to tell you, you need to take a supplement, I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to show you, and we can see it, that you're deficient in something. You're either not eating it or you're not getting it, not absorbing it. And just taking more is not it either. If you've got leaky gut, most of the supplements you are taking, you're wasting your money until you heal that up, and you're not going to break it down nor assimilate it. So important to do it right. Again, you don't have to spend any money on anything. Do what Robbie says, more vegetables, exercise, keep hydrated, all these things. These are basics, yes. But if you want to get more individualized, some of these tests are really good. And I will tell you that people that struggle with mental issues, depression or anxiety, a lot of times we'll find certain nutrients that really do, like phosphatidylserine or phosphatidylcholine, that really make sense with their mental symptoms. We supplement that in when the gut is ready to absorb it, and we see great things happen. So I love relying on testing, because it's not just listening to the body, which is the most important one, but I also have an added layer to be able to do. And remembering that food allergies, if you want to know if you have an allergy to something, the skin prick test, IgE, those are very good for environmental allergens, dust, pollens, grasses, all that, but they're not very good at testing foods. And it's only a few, and it's not very accurate. These sensitivities, I think, are very important to test for. So, again, I don't like saying everybody go out and spend a bunch of money on a bunch of tests. But if you're not at 100% and you're doing everything that Robbie's telling you to do, then maybe there's a hidden something that you do want to start testing for and looking at. And I know that Robbie had asked me to talk about hormones a little bit too. Do we want to bring that in now, Robbie, or we want to wait?
I think it'd be good, actually. Normally we do our discussion, then we go to questions, but because we have kind of multiple topics and they can be information rich, let's go to questions. So we have a couple of VIPs who have questions. First, Diane, and then we'll go on to Darren. So Diane, if you would please go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, Dr. Warden.
Hi, Diane.
Ironically, the screenshot that you had I've tested with that same lab.
Right.
The last test I had, it was so I've done 3 tests since probably 2018. So the last one was in 2020. I do have some consistency with what I get, and egg is one of them. One question I have with regard to that is, I hate the fact that I'm sensitive to eggs. And I'm wondering should I look deeper into, is it the white versus the yolk, or what are your thoughts on that?
Sure. So first of all, that test, the Immunolab, somebody asked in here what 2 companies, I put it in the chat for everybody, but Immunolab is the one that you're talking about. They've been around a long time. I've lectured for them. I've done research, they're a good lab. And ALCAT tests differently, by the way. It's a different way of looking at it. So if you want to look at your sensitivities that's tested a different way, you might want to look at the ALCAT and see if there's crossover. But as far as your eggs, so for everybody, there's a 1 through a 4. Okay, that means you're reactive. Even a 1 causes inflammation. We pay attention. But what I have found, if you're a 3 or a 4 on something, it doesn't matter, especially egg, the likelihood of it being just the egg yolk or egg white is it's usually you're allergic to both. So in other words, if you're a 1 or a 2 in egg and you want to add those back in, it's worth looking to see, can you have the yolk or the white? It's worth testing it. But here's the other thing. And you are testing for chicken eggs. That's a chicken egg. You can have duck eggs. You can have ostrich. You can have everything else. Go to duck eggs. They're full of nutrients, and you're probably not having a problem. And a lot of people go, oh, I don't want a duck egg. And I'm like, listen, if you didn't know anything, you've never had an egg, and I showed you both animals, look how ugly a chicken is. Well, I should say some are, but they're not very pretty, and ducks are beautiful. I think we'd choose the duck to say, I want to eat that egg. It's all in our mind, right? So think about duck eggs.
Okay. And that's exactly what I've done since I tested last. And I'm thinking I'd like to test again. I'm a 2, and I was hoping maybe that'll like go away. I'm sure I have had leaky gut. I've gone through a lot of treatment over the last 4 years, holistic treatment, and I'm seeing huge improvements. All the things you were talking about was me. But so, and one other question, just the strangest thing. So they have lettuce on this thing, and I'm a +4 on lettuce, and I'm thinking, and is lettuce just lettuce, or is that spinach? Is it all green?
Spinach is broken out from that. First of all, it is. So you should be able to see. It depends on the panel that you did, right? But lettuce is in the family. And that's a great question. So I use a smaller panel through these companies, as long as it covers all family groups. So in your lettuce, that particular company, you can look and it will give you all the family members that pertain to that lettuce. So in other words, a romaine would be included in there, right? There would be iceberg lettuce. All of those are in the same family. So if you're testing all the families, you can at least extrapolate, and you can even call the company if you can't find it. Most things you can find online now, but is it in the same family? So if you eat something weird and it's not tested, you can look up what family it is in. And if you were okay or not okay in that family, that's how you judge it.
Okay. And do you find that too with other foods in there? Like, there's foods in there that I'm not allergic, that I'm sensitive to, that I rarely eat, like a kidney bean or something like that. Is that a family thing too? Should I be looking at that?
They're all families, like the bean family, right? But here is something for you to think about too, is it's not just families. If you haven't eaten a food in a while, it's not going to show up on there. So you may take it and say, well, look, I'm not allergic or sensitive to this and this and this. But if you haven't eaten in months to create an antigen, you may have a problem with it, but you're not going to see it on the test because you haven't exposed yourself to it. So in your case, if you wanted to add chicken eggs back in, you got to eat them for a few months and then retest. Otherwise, it may not show.
So the opposite could also be true. If you're eating lettuce 3 times a day, and normally lettuce might be like a 1 or a 2, and you eat it 3 times a day, every day for a month, and then you get the test done, you could be like a 4 because you're overloading your body with something you're slightly allergic to.
Yeah. So you have to pay attention to that. That's correct, Robbie. So thinking about from a 1 to a 4, the next day, some of those could have slid back and forth but I've not seen a 4 actually be a 1. I've been to many labs for many of these companies and worked with the directors and done all the research in the background. So it's rare that a 3 or a 4 could have actually been a 1 or a 2 by eating a whole bunch of it, Robbie, especially a 4. If it's a 4, that is a hard link. I mean, anything's possible, but I would say pay attention to the 3s and the 4s. 4s especially. I just say find a substitute. You could try to add it back in later, but I think we're reaching a little bit if we're trying to get those 4s back in.
And how does a person know if they have leaky gut?
Well, every symptom in the world is leaky gut, right? But one of the things we can do a zonulin test. It's a particular test. And if that's high, we know that we've got a problem with leaky gut. Or you can do these kinds of tests. And like I said, if you've got over 6 or 8 of them, if you've got multiple, you're not sensitive to that many things. That's leaky gut. Things are getting across and you're reacting to them, but they're not true sensitivities or allergies in some cases. So I go by the sheer number of things you're reacting to. If you've got a bunch, it's because you've got leaky gut. You're losing minerals and vitamins. You're losing stuff you shouldn't be, and you're reacting to things that you normally wouldn't. They're called tight junctions. So the gut has this lining, it's a brush border, right? And that at a microscopic level are like they're if I stacked them, the cells like this, they're supposed to be tight. Things don't get back and forth. Leaky gut is when the tight junctions have a space in there. That brush border's been damaged. Now, what damages it? Stress, antibiotics, other medications. A lot of things can damage that, blunt that brush border, and you have to heal up, and it's usually proteins. Butyrate's a great one, inexpensive, or you can go into the powders and things that we have with different proteins that can heal that up. Bone broth's good. Just trying to heal that up is important.
And Darren, did you want to ask another question before we move forward?
Well, I see he's asking, how would you repair leaky gut? So yeah, we've got great protein powders that are specific for leaky gut. Those are the proteins we know that can help heal it up, right? And then think about this. If you're still eating the foods that are like picking the scab, picking the wound, so to speak, doesn't matter what you're going to take to heal it up. You're swimming upstream. So you have to stay away from antibiotics, try to manage your stress, get to the root of the problem, what caused it to start with, right? It could be fungal infection. It could be a parasite. You got to find out what's really causing the leaky gut. When you fix that and you don't eat the foods that keep it irritated, then it can repair. I particularly like butyrate. It's inexpensive and it's a decent thing to try for those of you that say, I don't want to do all this testing. I don't want to take all this stuff. Just try some butyrate and see if things get better for you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Dr. Darnis. Let's move forward to food allergies. Is that where you were headed next, or
well, no, so food allergy sensitivity, same thing. Yeah.
Okay, or into micronutrients, I should say.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, we can talk about that and take some questions on that. But the micronutrient testings inside that white blood cell, the type that I like to do, very, it's wonderful to see. I was going to try to pull one up on the screen, but I couldn't get it up. Robbie, remember you were with me at the beginning here. I've got some IT something in medical. We have everything locked down and encrypted so much that I can't get to things. But in essence, the test tells you, it breaks down all the vitamins, all the, most of the vitamins, the minerals, it breaks all of these things down. And if you're really deficient in something, that's worth repleting. That's worth taking a supplement. Or we look at it and say, why are you low in that? Maybe you're not eating enough vegetables. That's why all your minerals are low. So identifying the individual ones makes sense to me. Then I want to know, why are they? Now, there are some things that will look deficient. And I go, this person doesn't have leaky gut. They eat really healthy, really well. So then I start thinking about toxins, heavy metals. Lead will lock into receptors and displace magnesium and other things. So sometimes there's deficiencies there because there's an extra problem there you don't know about that can be locking in. And I would say a big thing that I tell patients, more is not better. If you're taking more than 6 or 8 supplements, that you're not getting to the root of the problem. It's just, nobody should have to do that. We're not fixing the issue. It should be few. I want people on basics that I know that they need. But here's a perfect example. More is not better in the amount of things, but also in the individual amount. Now, all of you would probably think, how many of you would think, wave at me, that folate, the B vitamin, would be a great thing to really be high in? If you think folate would be, most of you, right? We've been told that it's good, and that's correct. Folate at a certain level helps DNA synthesis. That means it helps repair DNA. That's a great thing at the cellular level, right? We like that. It's anti-aging, all the great things that folate can do. But folate at a high level can support the DNA repair and proliferate cancer growth. So there is a line with all of this. More is not better. Higher dose is not better. folate can work against us with cancer. And I work a lot with oncology patients and with the top researchers in the world in the metabolic cancer therapies, where we're doing keto and hyperbaric and repurposed drugs. And now I've been doing apitherapy, bee venom injections. But what I'll say is that we're learning that maybe a multivitamin may not be a great thing for cancer patients, because cancer's smart and it learns to work around things, and it's very good at hijacking things that are good for our cells, but it's also good for them. So we have a lot to learn. And I know that the minute somebody starts thinking that they might have cancer, that they start loading up on supplements and vitamins, and I think they may be doing the wrong thing. Okay, let's see. Yes, the two companies. Darren's asking if those companies for the suggesting outside of the USA. If you call my office, I believe Alcat is, but we have a whole list of what countries and how you would order it, all that kind of thing. So we'd be glad to help you guys with that. But I believe the Alcat is available outside of the US. Immunolab isn't, I don't think is. I could be wrong.
Dr. Darnis, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So I had to take antibiotics because of COVID, and I am kicking myself in the butt for having to do that. I did not have the energy to soldier on and just endure without it like Robbie did. So I am thinking here, how much am I damaging my stomach and my organs and my health because I had to take the antibiotic?
Well, let's give antibiotics their due when they work. And now most bugs have learned how to get around it. The antibiotics aren't working. And I'd say in the next 10 years, we're not going to have them anyway. But when they were discovered, they were a good thing, guys. They are. But there's a cost that comes with it, right? So if you got a secondary bacterial infection from COVID, antibiotic might have been the right thing. But yes, it does. We all know it destroys some of the good bugs, the bacteria that we need for all the beautiful things that they do for us. But if you're taking a good, well-rounded probiotic while you're on the antibiotics, not at the same time, at 9 a.m. you take your antibiotic, you don't take a probiotic till noon. But if you're replacing those bugs at the same time, same day, within that, the right kind of probiotic, it usually doesn't take much of a toll on you, but you worrying about it. So the stress about taking an antibiotic, now you got 2 hits against you instead of 1. You're going to be fine. Do your bone broth. That's great. You know, we know the chicken soup thing, cold and flu, they say just take chicken soup, old wives' tale. It's not, it's real. The proteins from the chicken in that broth and in those vegetables actually helps you with the common cold, which is a virus, which is a coronavirus, by the way. So, you know, go back to the basics and don't worry. Your gut will be fine. You can repair all these things. Just see where you're at once you kick this and see what your symptoms are and see what repair you need to do, but you'll be okay. Thanks. Stressing over it is going to be the worst thing you could do.
So, Darnis, in terms of prebiotic, probiotic, enzymes helping you break down foods, you get more of your nutrients. So there's 3 different categories. When should you take prebiotic? When is it a good idea? What type? Same question for probiotic, same question for enzyme.
So, you know, I've been working with the researchers on the whole pre, pro, and postbiotic, by the way, you know, their foods and then the bugs and this and that. There's so much we have to learn. Now, we know even in the cancer immunology world, we know that there's certain strains that look like they may help us with particular types of cancer. We're going to get very specific what bugs do what very soon. But right now, we really don't know a lot. So until we do, could some work against you? Maybe. So it's all about rotation. And this goes back to our diet and everything else. I'm a big proponent of rotating your foods. So let me back up a little bit. If you've got food sensitivities, whether you do or not, eating the same foods, like that sample I gave, that poor person wasn't going to have a whole lot of things left to eat. And what happens is many of you start eating the same foods every day. Guess what that does? You get a boatload of all, even if you're eating organic and trying to eat 100% clean, even those have toxins and pesticides and chemicals. You're getting the same load of bad things every day. You're not giving your body a break from it. And you're missing different nutrients from all the other things that you're not eating. So rotating your foods, rotating and not eating the same things is important. Same thing with these probiotics. Rotate your brands, rotate the bugs that you are taking, because we don't know enough right now to know exactly which ones you should be taking with whatever you've got going on. So for now, I say the best and the safest thing is rotate your brands, right? And whether it's a prebiotic, postbiotic, see what your bowel movements look like. Take it for 2 weeks. Be noticing your bowel movements. Are they normal? Normal is from elbow to wrist, that long, every day, about as big around in the middle as your wrist, medium brown color, easily pass. It's a nice little log, easily pass, and doesn't smell really bad, unless you ate something, that really makes it smell bad. But that's a normal bowel movement. So be watching what happens when you're taking this. And this whole thing that I hear people talk about, well, I'm detoxing, or it's doing this, or it's a Herxheimer reaction. How do you know it's just not a bad reaction instead of a healing crisis? So I think we've got to be careful with that too. Most of the time, if you're doing the right things, things start to get better, not go through huge hooplas of, oh, I'm getting worse before I get better. So that's the probiotic, rotate. Enzymes, I love. If you're eating a cooked food, anything cooked, it's dead food. You've killed off all the enzymes. I'm a big proponent of digestive enzymes to help you pull out the nutrients that you need from it, take the load off the body, having to do all the work. And systemic enzymes for inflammation. Enzymes are one of my areas of expertise in the field, and I really like enzymes, and I think they're a great addition to us, especially when you're working out, when you're doing things right, and you're doing what Robbie's teaching you, and you're moving and you're using your body. We need a little more ATP, a little more energy, and those enzymes are going to help you get it. So I like enzymes. You got to be careful where you're getting them. There was a recall a few years ago because most companies are getting their enzymes from a few countries that they really shouldn't be getting them from. And it's just a matter of time till there's another recall. But a good enzyme, a really good enzyme, most of the better ones are coming from Japan. There's a few other countries, but good enzymes are worth their weight in gold for you.
Yeah. Which specific enzymes would you recommend?
Well, I mean, I just happen to know which companies use which manufacturers. But I don't want to sound salesy here, but this is the reality. I spend a lot of time certifying everything that I use in my practice. If it's on my website and I'm selling it, and I've probably got 40 or 50 companies, guys, I'm not loyal to one company. I'm loyal to the best quality and the best price that I can get. And I make every company that I work with, even if they're great companies, give me a certificate of analysis for every batch. Not once a year, I ask them to show me something. Every bottle, I can show you that they tested it. What's on the bottle is actually in the bottle, and that the bottle doesn't contain lead, arsenic, bacterial, fungal overgrowth, all that, because I would venture to say more than 90% of what's on the shelf out there is junk. And at worst, even if it doesn't have what it says, it could be contaminated. And I don't care if it has a doctor's line on it, a name on it. The formula may look good, but if they're not asking the raw materials to be tested or where it's being stored, on Amazon or somewhere in the heat, there's no active ingredient left. You're wasting your money. So the enzymes I use are from ERC. It's a physician line. They're no more expensive than what you're going to get anywhere else out there, but they're high potency, best quality. They come direct from the manufacturer to me. I know they've been handled carefully, because enzymes will degrade and heat and other things if they're not done correctly. So ERC is a good brand.
And we can
there's others that are good, but
so
yes,
every nutraceutical on your site you've vetted, which is
every single one, and I continue to vet it, and it's a big, huge job. It's almost a full-time job for one of my staff members. But I know how bad the industry is, Robbie. I formulated some of the top things out there. And I'll see a company that was good for a while and then they sell and then they stop using the same manufacturer. Now the bottle looks the same. Ingredients are the same. Formulation hasn't changed. What changed is where they're getting the raw materials. And if they won't give me that analysis, I don't use them anymore because they're not doing the testing. It's a mess. It's actually a fairly corrupt industry. So everybody's taking all these things thinking they're being healthy, and it could be causing more harm than good.
So share your website, please.
Oh, it's
in the chat.
Oh, look at Patty.
Oh,
Yay. I don't have to type it. Yeah, drwarden.com. All I can say is that is what I can tell you about the there's other good supplements out there. There are. But if it's on mine, I'm doing all the work for you, the heavy lifting, that's for sure. But I love enzymes and probiotics. You want to rotate, but the enzymes, I do have some of the best. And we've got a lot of different ones. Some are for different things. You got to, look at it. Hopefully the descriptions are decent on there. I'm more about the quality than the marketing part. I'm going to try to get better on that, but I'm the researcher wanting the quality to be there for you. So any other questions? Let's see.
Awesome. So I think, Donese, the next would be, you mentioned hormones. You mentioned some things you felt were really important to share with us about hormones.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it seems like a lot in the health, wellness, anti-aging groups, everybody thinks we need to be on hormones. And sometimes maybe if they're low, we do, but why are they low would be the first question. And where should they be? And so it's kind of a guess. Yes, your doctors may be looking at your overall levels, but what they don't know, unless they're doing this new kind of specialty testing, is what pathways those are going down. So let me share my screen. Test's been out a couple years now. I've been using it, but I would say most doctors don't see it. It's called the Dutch. The company is Precision Analytical, guys. That's what this is. Okay. So, most of you, if you're thinking about hormones or you're looking at it, you're going to look at testosterone, progesterone, estradiol, maybe DHEA if you're lucky, right? But this test is looking at how it's all connected. So look at the cortisol pattern. Now we're talking about that stress hormone, right, Patty? If you're producing cortisol, worrying about being on the antibiotic, now you got an extra problem. So, breathe, do your meditation, take your antibiotic and believe in your body. But cortisol, see these black lines, guys? The blue line would be a patient's value. It should be in the middle of that when you wake up in the morning. Here's the interesting thing. Cortisol, yes, it's a stress hormone, but it's not a bad guy. We need it. It gives us energy. Within 30 minutes, see this 30-minute down here? Within 30 minutes, it should go up almost 250%. It should really spike within 30 minutes to get you out of bed, get you going. Then within 1 hour, it should be calming down. Then it stays down, comes down a little bit in the afternoon, and a little bit at night. Some of you may be crashing in the afternoon. Some of you may be waking up with it not even on the chart showing cortisol's down. So you're drinking coffee and kicking the horse while it's down. Your poor little adrenal glands are saying, stop it, stop it. So this is a great way to see how you're handling stress, but also what that cortisol is doing, because it's related to all the other hormones. But let me not get into all these details, but here's the beautiful thing about this test. DHEA, pregnenolone, those are big hormones that kind of feed everything. So if you're low in DHEA, it's probably because your adrenal glands are tired, because your adrenal glands are one of the major producers of DHEA. You're pushing too hard, you're not taking care of yourself, or you're over taking care of yourself. I say there is such a thing. You're exercising way too much in all the wrong ways. You're not eating the sufficient amount to support yourself. So your adrenal glands are going, I can't do this anymore. So without a test, how would you know if your adrenal glands are tired? You take your you can do it with blood pressure, but if you don't have that way, lay down for a minute, let your blood pressure adjust and jump up really quickly. If you get it all lightheaded, that is your adrenal glands not getting the blood to the top of the head, to your brain, and that's a sign of adrenal fatigue. So anyway, here we go. DHEA goes down, it makes testosterone. Testosterone isn't making not just free testosterone, but there's different forms. This is an active form. There's a 5-alpha, 5-beta. I want to know where it's going. Is it worth you being on? Is it converting? But more important, is that testosterone. And I see this in a lot of males that are on testosterone. It's really not converting where we want it. What it's doing, see this aromatase arrow? That means that testosterone is coming down here and making estrogen. Now, is that what you were after? Male or female, you're taking testosterone, but it's actually coming down and making estrogen. Now, that may or may not be okay. Estrogens, again, not a bad guy. It helps our heart, our brain, our bones. We need a certain amount. But the magic of this particular test, you see these 3 pathways here, right? These are bad guys. These, we do not want our estrogens coming down these pathways. These pathways are invaluable to clinicians and to you to be able to say, even if I'm not taking hormones, or my natural production of what my body is on, is it converting down here? So this one in general, this is about detox, how well is your body detoxing, doing with it. But this guy called 4-hydroxy-E1, we know that that is related to DNA damage. What is DNA damage? It's called cancer, aging, all the things that DNA damage does. So if you say, I've got a family history, or I'm concerned about prostate cancer, breast cancer, this is one we want to know. So do I really, if we need to be on hormones for quality of life and we can't block these pathways, it's not worth it. The good news is we've gotten really good at blocking these pathways in most patients. So if they need help up here, we can do it. We can provide it, or help your body make its own hormones better and make sure it's not driving down the wrong pathways that can cause problems. This one is about methylation. I'm sure you've had lots of people on there, Robbie, talking about methylation and the COMT, but we can test it. We can test it. So don't just throw people on hormones, and don't just think, okay, I'm okay on my hormones because I'm not taking any. You may or may not be. I just love this test for a lot of reasons. Another thing down here, which you guys will appreciate, it tells you your melatonin, waking melatonin. When you wake up in the morning, it should be a certain level in the morning. Melatonin should be at its highest about 3 or 4 hours before you wake up. I like control. If you need melatonin, I like controlled release melatonin, because you take it before you go to bed and it gives you a little bit all night long. If you take regular melatonin, it floods you there at the beginning. It might help you get to sleep, but by the time we need it to be at the highest, it's not there anymore. And then this shows DNA damage, oxidative stress. That's where we say, okay, you're either exercising too much in the wrong way, you're not following Robbie's protocol, you're doing the wrong thing, or you're, you've got too much stress in your life, those kinds of things, or you're not eating those vegetables we're talking about for the DNA. And it looks at dopamine and gluten, a few of the neurotransmitter markers that affect your brain and how you're feeling. So I really like this test. I think I'm anxious for many other doctors to start using it. It's invaluable. All right, Robbie.
Well, thank you. That was awesome, Donese. That's awesome. What questions do you guys have based on that? We're coming to about 10 minutes from the end of the show here. So any questions on the technical analysis?
I see some on chat. The topic of fasting, it is absolutely fantastic. It is good. The studies are very clear. Walter Longo, Dominic D'Agostino, all those researchers are real. They're great. They're my colleagues. I trust them. They're very good. Fasting is a great thing for most people. You have to do it right, and the right kind of fasting for you, but it increases longevity, decreases disease, big proponent of fasting. So, all right, to answer that, where does mitochondria fit into health? Okay, so mitochondrial health, in fact, Dr. Elliott, who I was working with and sent many cancer patients to for a type of vaccine that he was producing, we lost him to COVID. He was 90 years old and still doing breast cancer surgeries and doing his research with this microscope with all the PhDs, just a big problem. But mitochondrial transplants, they're still doing it. His PhDs, they just told me, I'm trying to help fund it so they can keep going for MS, Parkinson's, other things. So that mitochondria is the powerhouse ATP inside the cell. So there's actually research going on. If you have damaged mitochondria, then we can replace it, hopefully, and they're having phenomenal results with it. But Damaged mitochondria damages the respiration of the cell, and in the metabolic theory of cancer, that's what causes cancer. Very few cancers are a genetic disease, 1 to 2% are genetic. Everything else is a mitochondrial damage. So yes, how does it fit in? Mitochondrial damage fits into all of this that we're talking about, Darren. So that's a big area of research that I'm involved in. We do a lot with mitochondria, and especially with the metabolic therapies, which is hyperbaric, ketogenic diet, fasting, those things that affect the mitochondria in a good way. Okay.
Diane, you have a question? Please go ahead.
Okay, so again, the Dutch test that you had is the same Dutch test that I've had, and I think the biggest
issue, sounds like you've got a good doc.
Yeah, it's interpretation, and so the last one I had goes back a little ways, probably closing in on 2 years now, but so I'm in that mid-60s range where I'm starting to see what I think are some changes hormonally. So I guess the question would be, do you advise, or I mean, if I wanted to go through these tests, is that something you do? Or do I just stay with what I'm doing now? I mean, I've done all the tests, like long distance, but fortunately, like you say, I think I've had the right people. So very interested in taking it up to the next level, because okay, I did the test, but I think now,
you need to know what to do with it. And it's always good, it's good to have a second opinion. Sometimes you could have the greatest doctor in the world, but then somebody else looks at it and sees something that different. So it's okay to have different interpretations. And I do a lot of virtual medicine for that reason. In fact, half my practice is virtual now, all over the world, not just, here in Arizona where I am. So as far as your hormones being in the mid 60s for you, the longer, if you're going to take hormones, the longer you're on them, the more of a risk it is. That's just black and white. The stats are clear. We know it. But if you're low, it can it can contribute to your heart disease, to bones breaking down, mental health. We need these hormones in the level they should be for your age. And then I look at, how's your DEXA score? How are your bones doing? Do you have a family history? Are you having cognition issues? Are you having trouble with the brain clicking and wiring and firing? What is you as an individual? What are your risk factors? What are you feeling? And is it worth the risk of being on hormones a longer period of time? There is more research now showing us that they are a lot safer than what we used to think with the original studies that came in and said, oh my God, estrogen's causing cancer. Well, it's a type of estrogen they were using, this and that. But if we have this kind of information, now this isn't showing me everything about hormones. In medicine, we know this much really, but it shows me enough to say, hey, you do have a risk that I can see there, then I'm going to try to block that with natural things. It could be trimethylglycine or resveratrol. It depends on the pathways things. But if we can block it and get your hormones in a normal level for you and you feel the difference, it's worth the risk reward. But if you're not feeling a difference, why take the risk? That's my big picture on hormones. Why? I'm not a proponent putting everybody on hormones. I've got to have a reason why, and make sure that if I do, you're safe, as I can see, as far as I can see.
Thank you.
Yep. Somebody asked about lectins. So you're talking about Dr. Gundry's whole thing on lectins and the tomato thing, right? Boy, I will say the jury's out on that. I mean, Italians outlive us by a long way. They got wine and they have tomato sauce on everything. So if I start looking at black and white, I don't know that I believe there are a lot of things that cause inflammation, like the food sensitivities we're talking about. Lectins, there's some basic science in that, but it's not clear enough for me now to say, everybody stop eating tomatoes. It's not clear enough. I think his message is he's trying to do the right thing. He's got it on something that's different. It's unique. It gets attention. And I think he's probably well-intentioned in everything that he's saying. But when I've dug into the literature and looked at it, and I've talked to my researchers and all, we're like, I don't think it's solid enough for me to tell everybody stop eating tomatoes. Now, if you do a food sensitivity and the tomato shows causing inflammation in you, stop eating tomatoes. So lectins they do have an inflammatory component to them. They do. But if you take out lectins of everything, I don't know. I think it's going down a niche and it's not solid enough for me yet. It may be, and maybe give it 5 years, 3 years. Maybe this research will prove it out and I'll go, okay, it's 100% right. Right now, I'm not ready to go there. Would be the way to say it. See how you feel when you eat tomatoes.
What's your thoughts on the nightshades and like joint pains and soreness that people can feel from consuming nightshades?
But you know what? Nightshades can be very beneficial to other people. They have great properties to them. So nightshades, it's about listening to your body. Yes, you can just do food journaling. Just journal how you feel. Eat a food, stay within maybe a week, eat certain things, look at it and start journaling and seeing where your spikes are of inflammation or your GI got off or you're tired or whatever symptom it is that you say, this is not normal for me, I shouldn't have it. And start trying to identify what was it that you put in your body that caused it. Now, remember, it's not just putting in your body, it's on your body. Environmental toxins, all this plays in. And I think the biggest part that none of us talk about enough is the stress component. Are you beginning your day and ending your day with a meditation or a prayer, some kind of practice that calms you out of this autonomic nervous system running from the bear? If you hit the ground running and you're running from the bear all day long, and it may not be a bad bear that you're in survival mode, you're just excited about what you're doing, but your adrenal glands don't know the difference between a bear that's going to eat you and there's a really exciting project I want to do. They just know it's like your car, you got your foot to the metal and you're burning all the gas out. Start paying attention to your body. Practice meditation, get your stress response down or calmed, or at least be able to feel yourself to say, how am I today? Wear an Aura ring or some kind of wearable if you're not good at knowing yourself. I'd rather you know yourself, but wear these and see how you're doing with all the stress.
Yeah, can I ask a total unrelated question?
Sure.
So our doctor told us that the COVID vaccine protects only against the first strain of the virus. So if we are in the 5th strain, the vaccine would not protect at all against this one.
So I'm going to take this away from the vaccine and the COVID, but I'm going to tell you what my thought is. My patients, I treat them individually. Either they're trying to prevent or they're trying to, or they have COVID. What I would recommend for them is different for each person. And it's not necessarily about the strain or the vaccine. Is what does that person have? I already know they have thick, sticky blood. They're at risk for a clot. I'm going to be zeroing in on that. I'm trying to support the body into the weak areas that I know that they have as they go through this. Prevention is about keeping yourself happy, that stress piece, healthy, doing the things that we're teaching you today. Doing that is some of the best prevention. And I'm going to stay away from the vaccine for now, just because it's too controversial. Most of you have made your mind up one way or another. I'm not going to jump in the middle of that, but I have individual discussions with my patients about vaccines, prevention, and treatment is the way I'll say it.
Okay, this is a Genius Network conversation.
Good answer, Donnie.
That's me.
Yeah. It's like you want to discuss politics or religion.
Right.
Let's talk about the things we can all learn something from and kind of agree. Let me do what we can.
Okay.
Way to skate around it, but I'm not. I'm giving you a straightforward answer and I'm not going to answer it, right? Because it should be an individualized decision, in my opinion.
Totally, yeah.
And
then Dina asked, will you talk about gluten and Yeah, well, you're talking about gluten.
Yeah. Well, I test for it. Gluten's not great for anybody, but having a little gluten in some things once in a while, if you haven't tested. So you can test, you can even get a regular doctor to do a gluten panel. So it's not celiac disease, it's an autoimmune disease. You do a TTG test and you either have autoimmune celiac disease or you don't. If you do, gluten's gone, done, never have it again. It will blunt that brush border we're talking about and you're in trouble. But even if you don't have celiac disease, you can still react to gluten. So if you react to gluten, it causes inflammation. Don't eat gluten. If you don't, and you eat it, and we're not seeing any reason, that's causing you, and you feel okay, you can have it a little bit. That rotation I'm talking about is key. If you want to go to a birthday party, it's your birthday or whatever, and you want to have a pizza or you want to have something with gluten in it, and you're not going to be sick, or for the next 3 days, it's not going to take you down, make your choice. Too much gluten, not good. A little bit, if you don't react to it, I don't have a real problem with if you're rotating your foods.
Do any VIPs have any other questions before we switch to participants for questions? Do any VIPs have questions? So our VIPs in these meetings, yeah, go ahead, Diane. Yep.
Diane's the voice of the group,
yeah,
I guess,
yeah.
right? Okay.
It's normal, the 80-20 rule.
Shoot,
yeah.
you talked about gluten. So the same lab that does the food sensitivity testing has done, they run the
anti-gliadin.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm not even sure how to ask this. So what comes back, I'm told, is that I'm gluten sensitive. And so I've cut gluten out completely, but I'm not celiac per se. And so I just heard you talk about, I'm like at the point now where, oh my gosh, I make sure I don't touch anything that has gluten, because I've been through it where, yeah.
Yeah, so, if you don't have celiac disease, you don't have to be one of these, like I think it's what's the name of the restaurant? P.F. Chang's. They actually have different areas of their kitchen, so they don't accidentally get a spoon or something that touches with it for the celiac disease. You don't have to go to that extent if you're not celiac, if you don't have celiac disease, okay? But it causes a reaction, so treat it just like you would the food sensitivities. You're reacting to the gluten. Now, here's the catch. People go, okay, I think I got a gluten problem because when I eat breads or pasta, I have a problem. And I go, how do you know it's the gluten versus the wheat versus the egg versus the salt in there? How do you know which piece it is? That's where these tests come in. And I say, listen, you don't have a problem with wheat, it's the gluten. So guess what? Do unleavened bread, or it's the yeast. That's a hidden one. Baker's yeast. That's usually the main culprit that I have found. So it's the yeast that's causing you problem when you have that pizza, not the gluten in it. Okay. So think there are different constituents, different proteins. Which one is it that you're reacting to?
And one more question with regard to that. My understanding is once you are sensitive to gluten, it doesn't really, if that is the case, it doesn't really get better.
I think it's harder to desensitize to gluten than to the foods that we're talking about. I think of gluten as sensitivity as being in that +3 category, right? A 4, you're done. You should never eat that food again. A 3 is not good, and gluten sits there. You take it out like you have completely, then you're doing good. Your body feels great. Add it back in. You're going to know right away. It will not be, I'm not sure if I'm okay or not, or if it bothered me or not. You will know. You will know if gluten is a problem. Something's going to happen you can't ignore. That's the only way to do it. Take it completely out, add it back in, and your body will tell you if it's good or not, if you can handle it or not.
And Darren asks, what tests are needed for the prostate? So for men.
Yeah, we don't have a great one. PSA just tells me inflammation. It could happen. You rode a bike the day before, or you had sex and the PSA goes up and down, but it's the only thing we've got. I work a lot with prostate cancer patients. We look at cancer markers, but the digital rectal exam too. How good is a doctor really with a finger, in your anus, feeling whether we think it's enlarged or boggy or lumpy? We do our best, but it's not accurate. We don't have a great test for prostate. PSA is your most decent one, but you get a total and free, you start breaking down the test a little bit more, but it's really the only one we've got. We've got to come up with something better. We do. It's terrible because it's highly, here's the statistics, and don't scare anybody, but 60% of men at 60 years old will have prostate cancer, 70% at 70, 80% at 80, 90 at 90. It's not the matter of if, it's when. If it's a certain type of prostate cancer, that won't kill you, something else will. If it's an aggressive one, we've got to treat and we've got to know. So prostate cancer is huge. I will tell you that I think we support the prostate. That means having intimacy so that you can release. That helps support the prostate, is having an ejaculation. Let's just say that it's healthy. The other is pumpkin seed, saw palmetto, the things, zinc, the things that we know that support the prostate. That's about the best that we're going to do. And then we just test you. And if you start having a weak stream, urine stream, you start dribbling, it's hard to stop and start, or you're getting up at night to go to the bathroom all the time, that's the big clue that you have an enlarged prostate. Now we start doing diagnostics and look for that. Enlarged doesn't mean cancer, but it means it's not happy. So those, again, with prostate, the best test is what's going on with you. What are your symptoms? So somebody said, I have a wheat sensitivity. Can I eat Ezekiel sprouted grain? You're allergic to the protein in the wheat. Doesn't matter if it's sprouted or not. Now, sprouted will probably help break it down better, so you have less of a reaction, but it's the protein in the wheat that you have a problem with, and the sprouts aren't going to take care of that. They just may help you have less of a reaction.
Any other VIPs have questions before we go on to participants' questions? VIPs, any questions? Going once? Going twice?
I think you're all VIPs, but that's okay.
Yes,
I
yes.
can't wait to hear from
we
everybody.
call our clients, so our clients and our fitness doctors is VIPs.
I get it. I
yeah,
appreciate
so
you letting them go
exclusive
first.
access to
I get it.
our elite experts. Yeah.
Carol had her hand raised.
Yes, that's what I was going to Carol next. Carol M, if you still have a question, you can ask.
Yes, I do. Hello.
Hi.
I was diagnosed with COVID in March of 2020, and I lost my smell. And it's still not back. And so it's been in this March will be almost 2 years. I can smell a few things, some synthetic scents, but I really can't smell. What can I do? How can I get it back?
It's a common thing. And we don't have any really great, just do this, do your minerals, it'll come back. We haven't seen anything that really works. It takes time. It's a brain issue. We think it's in the nose and the receptors. There's a little bit of damage that went in there, but it's really a brain thing. And so if we think about what COVID does, it causes inflammation. It causes little microclots. That's where the storm, all the things that we talk about, the damage to the kidneys, the lung, the heart, and the brain, it's all about these little microclots that form. So whatever damage was done, we hope that with all the good nutrition and the exercise and things you're doing, Carol, that it will come back. I will tell you that there's a possibility it might not, but we will hope that it will in time. But I think enzymes are underutilized. This is where systemic enzymes make sense to me, that maybe your body is still a little thick. Maybe there's still some little microclots going on in you for all kinds of reasons, not just COVID or post-COVID, long haul COVID, is that can you get that blood flowing well? If you've got your nutrients, all the other things going that you should be doing to be healthy, can we get that blood to not be thick and sticky? I like an enzyme. I don't sell it on line because I think people need to be careful with it, but it's a lumbrokinase. There's only one company that does it right. I use it a lot in my patients, but it will break up blood clots. But Therazyme or other enzymes that I've got on the website, those also help that blood flow and help the microclots kind of calm down, because there's an inflammatory process. And if that is still going on in you, that's another reason why the repair can't happen. But I wish I could tell you, yep, do this, take this, and it'll come back. Haven't seen it, haven't heard of it. I mean, there's a lot of things out there you can find online. I would say most of it is just somebody trying to sell you something. There's nothing showing up in the research literature.
I'm currently working with, you know who Dr. Daniel Amen is?
Yeah, I know. I'm an affiliate. I'm an affiliate. I've been referring for SPECT scans for many years.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So so you mentioned the brain. So, a lot of his protocols, in fact, I was getting ready to maybe do a SPECT scan myself, just for my own brain health. And because I am getting older. And so, I mean, obviously, if I go do something like that, he's going to see the condition of my brain, put me on some brain health protocols, etc. I'm assuming that could then help with the smell issue as well, right? Since you were saying there was a large brain component.
Yeah, I'm not going to say it will, but it wouldn't hurt. It's an expensive process. Yeah. And yes, you're right. If you just get his book and you read, the same brain supplements that we all talk about and know, it's all the same. It's all the same. He's got his brain, but brain support is a good thing. SPECT scans are just more motivational is what I would say. You look at it and it's scary. You see this brain, looks like what's holes in it. It's really not. It just means it's not lighting up from less activity. So I don't refer a lot for that. It's only when I want to see a specific thing that I suspect is going on is when I'll refer for a SPECT scan. You could get a functional MRI, maybe underneath your insurance, those kinds of things. If there's something neurologically really going on, you have to look at all your symptoms. But if you're going just to try to look at, is there something you can see that would be specific for your smell? I don't think so. You might be better off just trying some different supplements and see if it helps other symptoms and your sense of smell. But like I said, there's nothing to my knowledge at this point that I know of that we've said, oh, there it is. This is what people need to do to get their smell back. It's just not showing up a signal in the research world.
Okay, although I am hearing you say systemic enzymes.
I think it makes sense. And I can't say now, I've had patients that they've gotten their sense of smell back, but I'm doing, things for them as an individual. But what I do for all of them, that is the kind of the thing that I do all the way through, are the enzymes. So is it possible enzymes helped them? Maybe, but I can't 100% tell you that that's what did it.
Okay.
But I think enzymes might help you.
All right. Well, thank you.
Sure. Let's see.
Well, let's go ahead and drop Dr. Darnis's contact information again, Patricia, in case anyone would like to get a hold of her for any of these subjects we've discussed today. And we'll turn it over to final questions before we close out today's show. This has been it's been awesome, super informational. Thank you so much, Dr. Warden. Really appreciate
always fun. I like collaborating like-minded people. You and Patricia, you're about mind, body, spirit. You're about doing it all and not saying things that we don't know to be true, not exaggerating claims and everybody do this and this is the one size fits all. I really appreciate the work that you do. So I'm glad to be here. And you guys that are working with them are lucky. I will say back in the day, I was an ACE certified trainer, and I still work with professional athletes. And for a while I was really working with, we even worked with the Phoenix Suns, and it was powerlifters, bodybuilders. I did some professional athletics myself. And so I know the world, and I know the sports world, and I know the functional body work, and Robbie is just spot on. He just is. There's very few that I consider that are, but Robbie's teaching you the right things.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Warden.
Sure. Sure.
And next week, so Patricia, if you would please, I think you already did that. You dropped the link for Dr. Darnis.
Yes.
Great. Awesome. And next week, guess who we have on the show next week, Dr. Warden? You actually know him also. Craig Shoemaker.
Oh,
remember,
yeah.
Remember that? Yeah.
Yeah.
So Craig is a super funny guy. and he believes in optimizing health through laughter, right? What
Yes.
a great way to stimulate all kinds of good neurological
It's
activity.
great. Yeah.
And increase blood flow and
That's
all
right.
of these things, right? Laughter is actually
that's right.
and decrease stress. And I mean, so
Yep.
next week is going to be a really fun
He's
show.
fun. The
guy is hilarious.
Yep.
So that's who's coming on next week. Of course, you'll be getting a couple emails throughout the week telling you exactly about that show and when it is, which is the same channel, same time, same place that we do
Zoom
our
link.
Same Zoom link. Thank you, Patricia. So
And the link for registering is in the chat.
So we got to keep fun with all of the knowledge that's coming. So that next week will be very fun. Much love to each and every one of you. Thank you for being with us here today. It's been awesome. And for my VIPs, I'll see you in session on Monday. Make it an awesome rest of your weekend. Take care of yourself, and we'll see you very soon. Much love.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being here on a Saturday morning.
It was great. You were great. This was awesome.
Good. I hope it was helpful. Thank you.